Punta Gorda, a part of the Toledo district, is the largest southernmost city in Belize and is about 210 miles away from the capital, Belize City. It has one hospital, one police station, and a lot of churches, schools, and restaurants. The people in the Toledo district are a diverse group of people that live in harmony with one another. They are the nicest and friendliest people that you will ever encounter. They also embrace their heritage and continue to practice their traditions that were passed down from one generation to another. The Toledo district has the highest poverty rate in Belize and usually ranks at the bottom with regards to health, education, and infant mortality. We left the school at 5 a.m. to head to Dulles Airport. It's 4:30 in the morning right now, and I'm getting ready to head over to the school to be on our way to Belize. Let's see. I'm super excited to go, and I think this is going to be a great opportunity to help people. And I'm going to come back with a great experience and just a different perspective on Belize in general and people. When we got to Dulles, our flight was canceled, and then our new flight was delayed, so we missed our connecting flight in Houston. We stayed the night in Houston, courtesy of United Airlines. The next morning, we were on our way to Belize, finally. It felt really good to be there. Once we got our luggage and went through customs, we met our van driver, who was going to take us from Belize City to Punta Gorda. It was about a 4.5-hour drive, and we took this van all the way there. It was hard to take some of these pictures because we were moving in the van and the windows got in the way. This is Belize's only highway. It's definitely not like the highways back in the United States. Our first taste of Belizean food came from a restaurant called Cheers. All the restaurants I saw were open like this. If they were closed, I feel like it would be really hot in there due to no air conditioning. The food was amazing. It was the best tortilla I ever had because it was homemade. The black beans really added flavor to it as well. This food set the bar high for the rest of the trip. You better believe it that we went to the coolest gift shop while we were there. They had some of the nicest souvenirs. I could have bought the whole store, but I don't want to spend all my money on the first day. They also had the coolest sink there. After what seemed like forever, we were finally there in Punta Gorda. This is our home away from home, also known as a Pro World bunkhouse. It was definitely nicer than I imagined. There was no air conditioning, but we had beds to sleep in, showers that didn't have that much water pressure, and indoor toilets to use electricity and Wi-Fi. A common thing in Belize was that we couldn't flush the toilet paper down the toilet, probably due to their sewage systems, but I'm not really sure. This became a habit for me, and I almost threw the toilet paper away when I got home. After we got all settled in, it was time for dinner. We had chicken and purple potatoes. These purple potatoes were the best potatoes I ever had. After dinner, we just relaxed on the hammocks. This became a nightly ritual. We went on our own walking tour of Punta Gorda right after breakfast.
Yeah, me and Rita, that's our favorite.
You're looking for mango? Let's go and see and get.
We then went on a walking tour of the town with Gordon. He's holding up a cacao bean. These cacao beans are also known as mined gold. This is how they make a lot of their money. This is the inside of a cacao bean. You don't eat the bean, you just suck on it. The Chinese are taking over Belize just like they are in the United States. This ice cream parlor used to be run by a local, but then the Chinese bought them out. We got ice cream there, and our server was absolutely crazy. After our walking tour, we got to participate in the Cacao Fest. The Cacao Fest brings people from all over to Punta Gorda. Here I got to see all the different cultures of Belize in action. You could tell that they were all proud to be Belizean. The vendors that were Mayan always tried to sell you something when you walked up to their items. They were like, we have bowls if you're interested, we have headbands if you're interested, and we have bracelets if you're interested. This is Emmeth Young. He is actually the best Creole drummer in Belize, and it's him that you hear in the background. His wife was our cook for Pro World. Another vendor that was there was a Garifuna drum school. The lady that was there was originally from Scotland and married a guy from Belize, so she attempted to show us how to play the Garifuna drums. The Garifuna drumming seems to have a deeper sound than Creole drumming, but I didn't hear much Garifuna drumming, so it's hard to make this comparison. All the locals said that we had to try their chocolate Belgian stout, and I tried it, and I personally didn't like it because it was too heavy. We're going to the jungle! This was one of my favorite days because I got to partake in the Mayan culture. We went to Gustavo's house where he gave us a background on the Mayans, showed us his medicinal trail in the jungle, and had a traditional meal prepared for us. One thing that I learned was that Mayans seem to do everything by the moon. The moon tells them when it's time to plant or time to gather materials to build a roof. Gustavo was very grateful to be able to plant crops and thought that he was lucky to live in a place where he could do that. He was also very proud of his culture and wanted to keep it alive because some of the younger Mayans weren't following traditions. It was neat to walk through the jungle and have Gustavo show us his plants. I would have never been able to pick any out or even know what they were used for. In the meantime, the Mayan women were preparing us lunch. This is chicken caldo, a traditional Mayan meal. It's made of chicken broth and tortillas, and we ate it with no silverware, so we kind of just slurped up the soup and ate with our hands. It was really good. After Gustavo's house, we were going to go participate in the last day of the Cacao Fest at the Mayan ruins.
Time marches on. Time marches on.
We had to walk up this hill to get to the ruins, and it was very muddy. The ruins were different from what I thought they would be. I didn't really know what to expect because I've never seen anything like this before, but it was definitely interesting to look at. I just wish that they had signs or something telling you what each thing was or what it represented back when the Mayans used to live here. I spent all my money for the trip on items that the Mayans made, and I'm glad I did because those are items that I may never be able to get again. They had live entertainment on one of the ruins, and it seemed like no one was interested in dancing until they were giving away free chocolate. The Cacao Fest was awesome to participate in. I think they had it at the ruins to bring more people there. I don't remember the name of the food that's on top, but all I remember is that I didn't really like it that much. But the other thing was the cinnamon cacao muffin, and it was really good. We did our service project this day at Forest Hill Methodist School. We painted their desks and chairs in one of the classrooms, and they really needed to be painted. And we also painted hopscotches on their sidewalk for the children to play on during their breaks and recess. And we also painted games on their picnic tables. I painted checkers on one of the tables. It was fun to paint games because I've never done anything like that before. This was our first day of teaching. We were all very excited and anxious. When we got there, they were doing their weekly morning assembly. And this was very interesting to see because what we do in the United States is way different than what they do. They all gather as a school instead of a classroom to do their pledge and national anthem. The first lesson that I got to participate in was the physical activity lesson for the infant ones. The infant one is equivalent to our kindergarten. The children absolutely loved going outside and playing. The only problem with outside was the ants. They hurt when they bit you. Some children didn't wear shoes, so this must have really hurt them. Next, I helped with the physical activity for the infant twos, which is equivalent to our first grade. It was then time to give my lesson on gastroenteritis. We had a puppet show planned for the children, and we started with Standard 1, which is equivalent to our first grade. We also had them make an ORS solution, which they absolutely loved. We also did this lesson for Standard 2, which is equivalent to our third grade. By the end of the day, we ditched our puppet show because the children weren't very interactive with us or responding to anything we were saying. So we ended up doing a freeform version of it, and they were very interactive and answering our questions. After the first day of teaching, I learned that when you go to teach in a foreign country, you have to come prepared, but also willing to change what you prepare to meet the needs of the children. This dinner was interesting. It was a broth with onions, and you put chicken in it and a tortilla, and it tasted really good. After dinner, we climbed in the back of one of the Pro World staff's vehicle to get pastries. I went for a run in the morning, and this is what I got to run to. This was our second day of teaching, and it definitely was a better day overall. Everyone was comfortable with their lessons, and we all knew what we were doing now. I started by helping with the Infant 1 and Infant 2 physical activity lessons. These children were definitely less shy than they were the day before. They were definitely more rowdy as well. In the afternoon, I did my gastroenteritis lesson for Standard 1 and Standard 2, and the children definitely were into it, and they were answering all of our questions that we asked them. The children loved to sing, and when we had leftover time at the end of our lessons, they would sing us songs, and it was absolutely adorable. This was our last day of teaching, and it went over really well. I wish we would have taught more because the children really enjoyed seeing us there. That night for dinner, we went to Emmett, the Creole drummer, and Jill, our cook's house, for dinner. While we were waiting for our dinner to be ready, we had a Creole drum lesson, which I was terrible at, but it was so much fun. This dinner was really good. We had chicken, rice, vegetables, and crab legs. This was the day that we got to be tourists, and it was a nice way to end our trip.
Summertime is finally here. That old ballpark man is back in gear out on 49. Man, I can see the lights.
We got to snorkel on our last day at one of the world's largest barrier reefs, and it was absolutely beautiful. We got to see 2 sharks while we were there. They were nurse sharks, so they didn't harm us. Our snorkeling guide actually went to touch them. We also got to go fishing without fishing poles. We just had fishing line and we dropped it down, and we had 2 people catch fish. I definitely wasn't ready to go home at this point. I wanted to teach more and see more of Belize and experience their culture. If I have the opportunity to go back, I'm definitely going to go back. I definitely recommend that you go on this trip if you have the opportunity. Seeing these children and just being around them and making a difference in their life really open your eyes and just makes you appreciate what you have in life. And it's also nice to see that these children don't complain about anything, and they're very grateful for everything that they have.